Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I will be talking to former students who will tell their stories of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students have taken, and for that matter, to share their experiences with my current students. Anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. Let's welcome today's guest, Darian Peters. Hey, Darian, how you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm wonderful now that I'm talking to you. This is amazing. So what I would like you to do is take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please include when you left the Don, where you went to high school, then college, then post-college, and what you're currently doing right now.
Okay. All right. So, hi, everyone. My name is Darian Peters. I actually was a special case scenario. I entered the Dawn in 8th grade, just 8th grade, actually. I started in 2014 and I left by 2015. I actually ended up then going to Boca High and pushed my way through and did dual enrollment, continued at FAU, graduated there very early on, realized
how early? Tell them, come on, smarty pants,
okay,
don't be afraid.
All right. So I was 19. I finished my bachelor's in biological sciences.
So something easy like underwater basket weaving.
Exactly. I don't know how, but I got bored of the whole plants and animals thing. My goal is to become a doctor. I figured biology was the way to get there. Soon after realized that I'm only 19 and no medical school is going to accept a 19-year-old. I decided I have to fill that time. So I kind of threw a dart at the dartboard and decided, let's try business. I think that stemmed from a lot of people saying, oh, I'm Miss Nicey Nice. I wouldn't be able to do business. My sister was all business oriented. I couldn't think of anything but to try it, right? I ended up doing business management, dabbled a little bit in, I should say, business. And then...
So this is your downtime. You're basically going, I'm 19, I graduated from college, and I need to find some other thing to do, and this is what you chose.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's just incredible. Because like at 19, here I am floundering around at community college because my grades weren't good enough to go to a 4-year college. And all I wanted to do was go to a 4-year college. And you've already graduated from college. That is amazing. So the business, oh, please. Thank you for sharing. It's incredible. So then why did you decide the business? Was there something that you wanted to use it for? Or was this just like time filler until medical school could be a possibility?
Actually, I should probably talk about the entrepreneur I was. I was in 1st grade. My parents are divorced, so a backstory with that is I kind of visited my dad on Wednesdays, and I don't know why, but I could trick him into staying home. I told him I was sick. You know, I played that card. I have a fever. My stomach hurts. I figured out this website where I could make an e-commerce site. I was in 1st grade, mind you. This went on until like 3rd grade. I ended up selling openers for coconuts. I had a website. I mean, now it's probably nothing, but it was called Open My Coconut. I put educational information on coconuts. I sold coconut openers. I got a source from Brazil. My dad helped me a lot.
Wow.
That kind of went away.
Grade. Most adults don't have the wherewithal to do this. And you're in 1st grade. Pardon me, I don't teach 1st graders, but how old are you?
6.
6 years old, and you have your first successful business. Jeff Bezos, are you listening? 6 years old.
Yeah, I was definitely a little entrepreneur, I should say. I then went on to go into high school. I was a professional volunteer. My family called me. I would love to do any job, but for free. As much as I could put myself into any scenario and be a part of any business. I don't know what happened. I never asked for money.
Yeah, it wasn't important to you. You were taking the thing that was most important, the experience, because you can't take it away. Like a college degree, anything earned cannot be taken away. And you were just looking for all the experiences that you could get to lead you basically to where you are now. And it
Right.
made you the person that you were, but you started off at an unbelievably young age. That's incredible.
Did. Yeah. And I think the part where I decided, okay, I cannot do these little entrepreneur things was I became a dog watcher on the app WAG. I don't even know if that's still a thing.
I don't think so. It's
I don't know.
now it's called something else now because that's how
Rover?
my Rover. That's it. That's how my wife and I found our pet sitters through
Oh
Rover.
yeah. Well, my mom came home one day and I had 11 dogs.
Wow.
Somehow she was gone for the weekend, and this was in high school, and I decided I was gonna dog sit 11 dogs, and
Wow.
I decided that they could roam free. And then the last day I was going to Disney World, and my sister had to take care of them, and they destroyed my house, so I needed to make a little bit of money.
To fix
And
it.
yeah, I had to become more entrepreneurial.
No, my God. And the entrepreneurial spirit comes in handy yet again. I made a bad
Exactly.
mistake. Now I'm going to come up with a new thing to fix that.
Exactly. So it's
Oh,
been ingrained through my life, that little, I guess that was a long story short, maybe not short by any means, but
That's fine, but that's incredible because again, all these experiences are what made Darian the young woman that she is today and the success that she is because she's learning from all of these things. And it's so incredible because most people don't get these experiences until they're much older. Here you are as a little girl, 6 years old. That's a little girl who's saying, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden you're in high school. I'm going to do that. And then you're figuring out ways to make money, which a lot of people just sit around go, I need money. I just don't know how to make it. And here you are just making it up. I tell that to the kids all the time. At this age, if you can, I love to do this to them. I'm like, take out your cell phone and tell me how much screen time you have. And then they're all embarrassed and they refuse to do it because it's ridiculous. And I said, if you cut out 2 or 3 hours of that a day, you could start up a little business. And as a kid, you have no overhead. You don't have to worry about employees. You're not worried about anything. And that little business could turn into something successful. Like I said, Jeff Bezos, he's selling textbooks out of his parents' garage. I mean, that's how he started. And look at him now. He's like a multi-trillion-dollar business. It's insane. So
right.
you never know where you're going to start, what's going to get you motivated. But let's touch on that for a sec. What was your motivating factor? Like, why did you want to do this? Because you wanted to prove you could?
I would say that's definitely a large part about it. I think that maybe through the podcast, I don't know if people can tell what I look like, but I was that little blonde girl that consistently had to prove myself and that I was more than that little blonde girl. I think that was a large drive for me was proving to people that I'm more than that. I'm so much more than what I appear to be. And I think that was a large driving force, is that a lot of people, even if they didn't really necessarily mean to do it, they almost downplayed what I could do.
Yeah.
And
I remember when you came to my class in 8th grade, and I remember that whole persona, and you're just like, I'm just not this blonde girl. I have a brain in my head. And you just came in and proved it. You didn't know anybody because you were brand new to the school. 2 years, you were somewhere else. You went to Boca Middle and you didn't know. And now all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to show these people how smart I am. I'm not just whatever on the outside. I want to show you what I am on the inside. And that's what was always so impressive to me, because you just stood up, said stuff. You didn't care. You were new. You didn't know any of these kids, but you're like, I'm smart and I'm going to show you. And that again is another incredible thing that you have. You weren't just going to be like, well, I'm just blonde and I'm going to get whatever I want and everybody's just going to hand it to me. You're like, no, I'm going to take it because I want it and I deserve it. It wasn't just, I'm going to use this. You always had this, I'm going to prove it, but not in a nasty way and not in a mean way, in a very intellectual, very thought out, methodical way, which was always impressive to me because you always had smart things to say. You always had really good insights. And my favorite thing was you were never afraid to say it. And, that's what makes a successful person. They don't sit on the sidelines.
No, I think that's definitely a large part of me, is that I was never really truly afraid to be the one to speak. I think for a large part of my life, including the time I was at Don Estridge, I was struggling to find who I was. But I think that almost led me to that search and this immense drive to even prove to myself that I'm capable of so much more than what I show to be. I think that has always been a large part of me.
Yeah, for sure. My moment that I remember, as we were discussing before, is that you were one of the first kids that I ever remember who told me, Mr. Proper, I didn't go here in 6th and 7th grade, because I asked you, like, don't you know how to do this? I don't know if it was where we write like a certain paragraph, we're using a certain English style or whatever. And you're like, I didn't learn that at Boca Middle. I'm like, what? And you're like, I didn't go here for 2 years. And I went, oh my gosh, this kid doesn't know what's going on. I mean, they're smart as a whip, but they don't understand the dynamics of what this school requires. And that was my aha moment. Like, how many other you people in this room that are this way? And I didn't know that. And you clued me into something that I didn't even know. And I'm the teacher and I'm expected to know a lot of stuff. And you were the first one to show me that. And I can honestly say, because of you, I have a soft spot for that kid. I'm always trying to match up those kids together so they can become friends. I'm always trying to help them along so they understand how the Don works. And it must be incredibly challenging because you don't know anybody. And at 13, 14 years old, not having friends in a new situation is not the easiest thing to go through. And for you to persevere the way you have is just incredible.
I definitely, and just to bring that up, I hope someone else kind of has this same feeling, and maybe a listener can relate to this. I hope they do. But I was that girl that just showed up out of literally nowhere. I got that call, I think, just a couple weeks before school started. And
if that, it's usually like the week of or something like. I've even had kids tell me, Mr. Proper, I got the call yesterday.
Yeah, you just show up. And I honestly, that was kind of like a point where I knew I had to take it. I think 6th and 7th grade were a really big struggle for me. I felt like I couldn't really find my group. I couldn't find who I fit in with. And I looked around at the end of 7th grade and I said, who do I have? It didn't feel like I fit. So I think that was a large part of me saying, let's try something new. So when I got that message that I got into Don Estridge, finally,
you were like, I waited 3 years for this. Let's go. Let's do this.
I showed up and I was ready, except I knew no one. I literally came into the situation, the new girl, and I had no idea what to do. So I hope someone else relates to that.
And as we've discussed, no one took you aside and say, okay, Darian, you're new to Don Estridge, and these are the things that are expected. Like we had discussed dress code and we had discussed all these other things. And you're like, I didn't know any of that. And somebody should have taken you aside and said, okay, what was it like at Boca Middle for you for this, this, and this? And you would have been like X, Y, and Z. Well, here at the Don, it's 1, 2, 3. And you would have been like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Instead, they just throw you into the fire and expect that you understand what to do. And actually, again, because of you, I have asked many times for many years, I don't know, well, you wouldn't know because you didn't go there in 6th grade. We have a How to Train Your Dragon for the incoming 6th graders. Well, I have said, even this year, I said, are we ever going to do one for the new incoming 8th graders who have missed 2 years of how Don Estridge works? It's almost like we're handicapping you with not knowing how things work, and that's not fair to you. How do we expect that you're going to be successful if you don't know how to do it? It's not like, okay, you bought this brand new thing from IKEA, but it doesn't come with the instructions of how to put it together. Like, wait a second, I'm good at putting things together, but without instructions to look at, does this go together? Like, you need help. So that's amazing, though. And you were able to succeed, and you were able to go on to high school and succeed and graduate college super early and do all these things. I mean, this is incredible. Well, first of all, that's just an unbelievable story right in itself. Thank you so much for coming on and telling my students about your life and its experiences, because as you said, I know it's going to touch a current little Darian in my class who's going to go, wait a minute, that's me. And if she
Hope
did it,
so.
so can I.
Mhm.
So I want to know, and I ask, how did you get inspired for learning? What was your personal learning journey or story to go, I really like education?
I would say I have to preface I have an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. My parents, again, like I said, they're divorced. They divorced when I was fairly young, and I think not that it necessarily meant that my sister and I had to navigate more on our own, but we had each other, and that was kind of like what was always stable about my life. And she, of course, 2 years older than me, was introduced into the school system 2 years before I was. And man, I wanted every part to be a part of that. And I just remember wanting to almost race her through it. And I think that was a large part of why I became honestly 2 years ahead. Is I lived vicariously through her, and we kind of had this challenge against each other, but it really wasn't anyone in particular pushing me. It was more of me creating that drive, just based on wanting to emulate her. And I think
Right. It's
that
kind of like
was,
little brother, little sister syndrome, because
yeah,
I'm the little brother. And I was always in competition with my older brother, who also is 2 years older than I. And
right,
whenever he did something, I was like, I want to do that. Whenever he did something else, I want to do that. Whenever he was good at something, I'm going to be better than him. And it was always this nice competition that we would always strive for, to see who could be better at whatever it is. I totally understand exactly what you're talking about, because I grew up in a very similar way.
yeah. That definitely was the spark, I would
Excellent. So you would say it's more of your sister. So then, was there ever a teacher that maybe did it for you for a subject matter that maybe got you interested in science, or when you were saying about how you wanted to do business? Was there ever that teacher, or it was just, this is my path?
I would say, I mean, I gotta owe a lot of the credit to even you at the Dawn, but
Thank you.
I would
I'll pay you
say,
that $20 on Venmo that I promised you earlier.
thank you. I would say one of my teachers in high school, I don't know how I got into it, but I got into an early childhood class, and I wanted to take care of a flower baby, the ones you see
Yes,
on
yes, yes, yes.
TV. They didn't
Yep.
have flower babies. We were just learning about child development. And I
Hmm.
knew I wanted to be a doctor from a really young age. And honestly, I approached the class kind of like how I approached everything at that period of my life. Why am I doing this? Right? I
Right.
question, why am I in this class? And the teacher, her name's Miss Layton. I mean, maybe some students will see her next year. She teaches all 4 years at Boca High, childhood development, for someone that wants to be really a preschool teacher. It gives you those
Right.
certifications. And
Right. Right. Right.
to be a doctor, everyone wants to be a preschool teacher. And that class, I think she kind of sparked that in me, is that you don't need to take that route A through Z, and it's not 1, 2, 3. There's no clear defined instructions on what path you need to take for really any career. And
Couldn't
that,
have been said any better. There is no clear-cut path. I say that in class all the
right,
time. That's why I'm not ashamed to tell people, look, I went to community college. Why? Not because I couldn't hack it. It's because I was too immature. You go to any college, whether it's whether it's Michigan, or whether it's a tiny little school like mine, Slippery Rock,
mhm,
there's a party 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I would have been there rather than in the library studying. I needed to go that path to get to where I am today, like it says in the intro. Everyone has their own path, and you can't compare yourself to somebody else who just dot, dot, dot. I did the 1, 2, 3, like you were saying. Because, first of all, most people are not telling you the truth anyway. Everybody has tribes and tribulations. Nobody just sails through everything easily. There's always a bump in the road of some sort. But your path is your path, and you have to follow it and not deviate. But that doesn't mean your path can't shift, your path can't change, but it's your own path, and you have to be accepting of that.
that's definitely, I would agree. I think that was really she sparked something in me that made me really open my eyes to the fact that I was the one that was going to carve my path. No one was going to do it for me. And a lot of people, and I'm sure maybe some of your students can relate, a lot of people want to be doctors and they think there's this one path you have to take with these steps and you have to major in this. And honestly, I went into early childhood. I got my certifications to become a preschool teacher. I loved hanging out with kids. I felt like a kid at that moment and I loved it. And the people skills that I obtained from that could be much better than a biology course that I took in college. And I'm so glad I took it. It was it was a 4-year program. And that kind of sparked that thought is I'm going to make my own path. And it's going to be what I determine shapes me. And I took that into business. I took that into research and science. And ultimately, I still have the same goal, but it definitely wasn't a conventional path. And I'm glad it wasn't.
It's the same thing with what you told me earlier about your medical career. What is the path that you want to take to do that? That is very interesting in itself, if you wouldn't mind going into that for a little bit.
Yeah. So I, of course, like I was saying, graduated fairly early. No medical school is wanting a 19-year-old, so I thought. I realized first I got to bring it back to college. I didn't grow up really with the luxury of affording college. I didn't know how I was going to afford college. Something landed in my inbox, my email inbox, a scholarship opportunity for research. I didn't know what research was. I don't know if it was mixing chemicals. I don't know if it was making some weird Albert Einstein science experiment. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I went into it naive as could be. I got the scholarship and I said, all right, let's give it a try. And I ended up really liking it. And I started my first day of undergrad and I've been in the same setting, actually at a medical school doing research since. And research is great for wanting to go that track of becoming a physician. But the skills that I learned, I mean, I have stretched it to every possibility. I've published papers. I've met people from all walks of life. I've met just people that don't even have things to do with medicine, that I realized that was something that I needed to go through. And of course, I did the entrepreneur thing and I did the research thing. And I really took those years of my life to do things that I figured I might not ever get to do again. And I owe a lot to that.
Darian is the true testament that there's no such thing as a bad experience. That she takes every experience and learns something from it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be good. She's going to make it great. It could be horrible. She's going to make it good.
Yeah.
Because she realizes that there's something to be gotten for all these things. And this is what makes her stand out. This is what on a resume going into medical school, doing what she's going to do is going to make somebody go, I want this one. And that's what life is all about. How do you present yourself to be the best form of yourself you can be? You work really hard. You take on opportunities that maybe not everybody else would do, but you find something that's going to help you get something out of it. And that's what's so incredible, that all of these stories that you're telling, this is, like you said, this is not the typical, okay, you step on this stone and then that stone and then this stone and boom, I'm a doctor now. No. You're taking all these twists and turns and going around corners and stopping at stop signs, going up and down the hill, around the mountain, and here we are. And that's not the norm, but it is for you. And that's what's so important to tell my listeners, is that there is no one true path. Your path is your path. And sometimes you have to trust the path and not try to guide it. Let it guide you.
Right. I think that was a big, I would say, driving factor for really anything and everything I've done lately. And it didn't always seem like that. I felt like I was just really pushing against the current. I part of it was I had no idea how to do the things that I wanted to do. Just really felt like I wasn't good enough for it. And by trying things, I figured it out. But I
But that's what it's all about. You don't try,
yeah.
you're never going to know.
I
You
look
have to
back,
give it a try.
yeah. I look back and I'm so thankful that I did. I tried all the different things. I mean, I got so many questions. You don't want to be a preschool teacher. What are you doing in these classes? Oh, I'm learning. I just figured I'm learning. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about the education, and
But we're back to the path. You're
yeah,
deviating from everybody else's norm. Once you're around away from the norm, everyone's like, why are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't help you. No, it does. You don't understand how it helps me. So what does it matter if you do or you don't? I'm the one that needs to understand that it's helping me. And
right.
that's what's so incredible. Again, you're pulling out the important experiences to make it's almost like you're a giant puzzle and you're pulling out all the pieces you need to make you the puzzle that you want to be. And you're so smart to realize, yeah, fine, I don't want to be in early childhood, but so what? It's teaching me something else. And then on top of that, why do I have to explain it to you? This is my life. Why are you trying to beat me down when I'm learning from this and enjoying every moment of it? Who knows? Maybe I want to be a pediatrician and now I know how to work with kids better. This is my experience of life, not yours. But a lot of adults tend to do that. They want to tell kids what they think they know better. And you're a kid. How can you know better than me? I'm an adult with more times around the sun than you. So how could you know what you're wanting to do? But Darian's saying, no, 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 no. This is my Ferrari of a life, and I'm driving it as fast as I want. Stop telling me to slow down. And that's what's just incredible about you is that you just brush by the naysayers like it's nothing. And that's an unbelievable characteristic at such a young age for you to have, because most people are always worried about what's everybody thinking. These are the important people. I should be listening to them. And obviously success is still happening to you. So bucking the trend of what everyone's telling you works for you. And I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Thanks.
So, oh, sure. So if you could turn back time and tell your eighth grade self some advice, what would you tell eighth grade Darian?
Man, I would absolutely turn to the thought that people are going to want to be around you and gravitate to you based on who you are and not who you think they want you to be. I think that I fell victim to trying to be someone that I wasn't because I thought people would like me better. And I think it took me a while, especially in middle school, to figure that out, is that people want to be around Darian for who Darian is. And I really didn't I didn't want to trust myself on that. And I wish I did earlier because that got me to the people that I felt I needed to be around versus the people I thought I needed to be around, I should say.
Yeah, I've had a whole bunch of kids. Like one of my former interviews, Samit, he actually came and spoke to my class on Friday because he was in town from University of Florida, and he was telling them about how he interviewed Dan Marino, his childhood idol, and
Mhm.
then in his thing, he's like in his podcast, he says, I wasn't hanging around with the right kids in middle school. And I realized that they were kind of dragging me down in my academics. And if I wanted to do well by the time I got to high school, I needed to change my friend group. And he did. He wanted to be around what you just said.
Right.
People who challenge him to be better. People who were maybe not smarter, but worked harder. And they strove for the A's. They turned down the parties on Fridays and Saturdays to stay home and study for the test on Monday. And he's like, I still do that. I don't go out on Thursday nights with my buddies. I stay home because I have a test on Friday. And even in college, they don't understand what he's doing. But
Right.
that's the mark of a successful person. And that's wonderful that you could say that. Now, here's the weird twist. Would eighth grade Darian listen?
I wish I could say yes, but I don't know if she would.
Thank you for your honesty. I
You know,
appreciate it very much.
I do truly. I remember so vividly being in your class. I remember exactly where I sat. I actually sat. Do you still have tennis balls on the bottom of your desk?
Yes,
Like
I do.
on the desks? Okay, I'm remembering this right. I
You are.
sat the front seat, like right in front of your desk, and I'm pretty sure it's because I didn't like to listen. I had my own prerogatives sometimes, and I also felt I knew best, which I was stubborn.
Yes, you were.
I gotta give it to everyone that touched my life, is that I was not going to take no for an answer. So I don't.
Yeah, but you're stubborn in a really nice way. You're
That's
not a mean person about it. Your stubbornness is just sweet and nice. Like, there are a lot of people who are stubborn who don't know how to do it. You did. Your personality was stubborn, but in just such a sweet way. You're just kind of like, fine, here's your 5 minutes. Go off on your soapbox. If it gets ridiculous, I'm cutting you off. And you were just like, and but those are the kids that I love, because you have a brain in your head and you have something to say, and I want to hear it. And I love that. It doesn't matter who you are. And Samit was the same way. I would give him his 5 minutes, and the same thing. Normally, though, he would go towards sports because he knew, well, if I talk about sports, something he loves, Mr. Proper won't be so mad at me. So he knew as a boy, let's curtail to what he likes. You took it from just an intellectual point of view, and I think, again, you just shocked some people with not that what you said was shocking, but what was coming out of your mouth. They weren't anticipating the intellect that came out of you, and that's why I was like, go right ahead, show all these kids you know exactly and more about what you're talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, that's still something in me today, is that
don't ever lose that.
I really strive to be that person that people may not assume me to be, because as much as you can do really whatever you set your dreams to, people might try to get in your way. But I think that
come on, it's the old adage, don't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. I think that quote stands true.
That's you. That's bullseye to you. That's it. It's totally you. And that's what I totally love, is because when someone is stepping out of the social norms that is expected of them, those are the people that are going to be successful. Because I don't want to say you have an axe to grind, because that sounds like you're mad. Mm-hmm. But you have something to prove, but you do it in such a polite, nice way. And I think it takes somebody of intellect to see it, because other people, I don't think they understand it. But if you have a brain in your head, you're like, all right, she's got her thing and she's going to do it, but in her way. Whereas other people are like, listen to me. And you're just like, I have things to say, and you're going to want to listen because of what comes out of my mouth.
Right. That is absolutely true to me, I would say.
Without a doubt. Again, you just remember certain people that have come through your life. Now, don't get me wrong. I meet a lot of people every day, every year, for 26 years of this career of mine, but there are people that just stand out. And I know, because of my wackadoodle teaching style, I'm the teacher that stands out for a lot of kids, because they're like, I've never had a teacher like you before. And I'm like, and you probably won't. And that's why you're going to remember me, good, bad, or ugly. But I'm going to be that memorable teacher, because I'm, talking in voices and wearing costumes and saying silly things. And I just want you to get motivated. I want you to come to class and go, what's going to happen today? What's happening on the Mr. Proper Show? Let's turn on channel 128, which is my classroom, and see what's going on. And every period's different. I'm teaching the same thing, but even I get bored with it. How many times can I teach the same thing 5 times a day? So I mix it up as well, but you have to know what you're doing to be able to do that.
Right. I agree.
So if you could answer this next question of transition, was there something from your transition from middle to high school, the good, the bad, that you can share with my students, like that helped you, or there's something? How was the transition for you going from middle school to high school? Was it easy for you? Was it difficult? I mean, you explained how challenging it was just coming to the Don for 1 year, and then boom, you're gone and you're right off to high school. How did that transition work for you?
I would say that just in between that summer of going from 8th to 9th grade, I would say that I changed significantly as well. I owe a lot of what I learned from the Dawn, really, and the people I met there. I really did love all the people I got to meet, but then I also got to really have this trial of, who's Darian, and who should she be? Who do I want to be? And I think that searching for my personal identity really came in that transition. And it was a little bit overwhelming, but I think once I got that figured out, as soon as I really got to high school, I knew really what I wanted was to get through school fast and get to that point. I mean, I wouldn't say that's the best thing I could tell myself to do
Was
now.
it more? Was it more like a transformation? Do you feel? I don't want to say, like, I keep having this thought in my head, but it's not really, like, almost like the phoenix coming out from the ashes. Do you feel like maybe you were almost reborn because you were able to start anew at a new place and become almost whoever you wanted to be? That's what I explain to the kids. I went to school with half of everybody I went to high school with from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then the other half came in high school because I went to a town-based school system. And you went to school in a county-based school system where, yeah, maybe you lived in Boca, but you wanted to go to school in West Palm, you could. So did the transition help? Because, I mean, you went to Boca High, so you still went to school with a lot of the kids who went to the Don. But do you feel like it was kind of like a resurgence of you because you could meet new people, you could start new ideas or join clubs that maybe we didn't have? Or was it a transformation in that way?
I would say yes. I think the other part of it is that it was a big culture shock for me to show up at the Dawn in 8th grade, not knowing anyone. And I kind of prepared myself for that in 9th as well. I considered, okay, this is going to be a bigger school. I think at Dawn Estridge, you meet people that may not follow you to high school. They, of course, come from all over the county. It prepared me well. I think the other part of it, though, is that summer and that year of being in 8th grade, I found out a better sense of who I was and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to go about myself a lot better.
But again, we're back to the same main theme of this, is that here you are taking this experience of, I went to Don Estridge for 1 year and it's over. And what did I learn from that? Well, I'm going to high school and basically the same thing is happening again. What can I get from that? It just seems to be this theme over and over again. And you're just taking what you learn to help you move forward. You're not, woe is me, I went to Don Estridge for 1 year. I made some friends, but not a lot of friends. No, I'm going to high school and now this is just something new. Let's conquer this. And that just seems to be your modus operandi of how you operate. And that's, wow. It just seems to be just one thing after the next, and you're just kind of like, it's like reading a book. You know, for you, it's like, what's on the next page? What's on the next page? What's on the next page? And you're not afraid to try it. That's, wow. So for all of your educational experiences, what would you say was your most challenging experience, and how did Darian overcome that challenge?
I would say, of course, there's always going to be that one thing where you think that's going to be the hardest. You just have to get through it. And then the next thing comes. Unfortunately, that was something that I learned you not have to get used to, but learn to adapt. I think the largest obstacle I faced was actually just this past year. I took the medical school entrance exam, the MCAT. And a lot of people create this giant stigma around the big, scary MCAT.
Oh, yeah.
It's the 3-digit number that determines the rest of your life. And I learned that not easily, but that 3-digit number does not define me. And I think that I had a few months where I really thought it did. And I think that goes for anyone's educational journey, is that sometimes you do get to the thought where it's like, okay, it's the numbers that define me. But I think that led me to the realization that they're not. And that definitely didn't come easy. But
no,
it was
that's a difficult lesson to learn.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, just like we've discussed many times, you didn't just show up to the MCAT the day that you were taking the test, right?
No, I thankfully not, because I don't know what would have happened if I.
It wouldn't have been a 3-digit number that you like, that's for sure.
Exactly.
How much time did you put into this? Just to give my listeners an idea of how much work, how much time did you prepare prior to taking this test?
Everyone's story is a little bit different. Of course, paths really are variable, but I studied for around 5 months, and that was with working full time. And of course, me working full time means I have like 3 different jobs. So it was an overwhelming, like 4 or 5 months.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard anywhere from that to 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Like you said, everybody has a different story. I can't believe how many doctors that are now either going to medical school or have graduated from medical school that have graced my classroom, and they all say the same thing. They're all like, yeah, this wasn't just, oh yeah, I just showed up and got a 340 or whatever I don't even know what the numbers are. I'm just throwing it out there. And I'm like, wow, because is it out of 400, 420? What's the high score? I can't remember.
It goes between 472 and 528. Who picked those numbers? I have no idea. But
that's a bizarre number.
We want more like the 528 range.
Right. The higher end of the scale is what you're looking for.
Not the 472, but yes, you want to get to the higher numbers, let's say.
Thank you for telling this person that's never been to medical school how to get there, and I still can't. Okay. So after you've just explained all of this unbelievably hard coursework, unbelievably amount of hours you're spending doing things, like you're constantly doing things 12, 14, 16 hours a day. What does Darian do to unwind after this difficult course load, or in this case, working, whichever one you want to choose? What is your thing? What is your downtime that you're like, I want to do this?
It's definitely not really relaxing, but I think any dissociation from what my plan is, being medicine, is business for me. I think even researching anything that I was interested in, obviously I got a lot into e-commerce. I think just learning about that, I've always had this really deep interest to learn, and it wasn't really in the curriculum for medicine. So I spent a lot of my free time learning on e-commerce or different entrepreneurial tasks, or how to invest this and that. So really my idea of downtime isn't downtime, but considerably how it differed from the other things going on in my life, it felt like downtime.
Yeah. Well, basically, you're literally the monicum of a successful person. Every time I've ever listened to anyone talk about how they were successful, they don't have downtime. They don't do anything that has nothing to do with being successful. They're not like, yeah, Sunday is all day football and I'm just hanging out, drinking and eating a sandwich and blah, blah, blah. Right. No, that's the true mark of a successful person. Their downtime is, I want to do more work so the career will be easier in the future.
Right.
And that is what it's telling me, because I've heard this story from so many successful people over and over, not necessarily telling me, but listening to them when they're being spoken to, like, how did you become successful? Because again, you don't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be a movie star, I'm going to be a rock guitarist, I'm going to be a gymnast, I'm going to be a doctor. It doesn't happen. This is something that has matriculated over time. This is something that there's been blood, sweat, lots of tears, and you keep pushing on. But these are the marks, ladies and gentlemen, who are listening, of a successful person. This is someone that is not going to give up. It's not going to let adversity get in their way. But everyone's version of adversity is different. For Darian, it's different than maybe it is for you, but still, we all have it. Everyone just likes to look today, as we've said, at the end, the prize. Like, oh my God, you have this $5 million house. I want that. Not asking, how did you get it? I just want it. They want to go from house to living in it, not earning it. And you are on the opposite end, and is a great thing to see in a young person, because I'm just not seeing this workaholic, work. As who was that? Work. What was that song?
Is that Rihanna?
Thank you. It is Rihanna. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know my pop culture. I know the song. I don't know who said it. I'm sorry. I'm an old man. Leave me alone. So anyway, it's, that's it. You are working towards a goal, and there is really in your life no downtime, but to you it is. And that's what's so interesting. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Downtime, apparently, for Darian is the eye of the beholder as well.
Yes.
Because to the rest of the world, we're like, does this girl sleep? Does she eat? Like, how does she have time to do anything? Well, because these are the things that she enjoys. And again, if you want to be successful, please listen to this person. It doesn't mean that you can emulate and do what she does, but take the parts that you can do. Don't just say, this is too much for me and I can't do it. No one's expecting you to eat a 20-inch pizza by yourself, but you have a little nibble and you take what works for you. That's the whole point of the podcast, is to listen to these people tell their stories, because they were sitting in your desk. Literally, there's someone sitting in Darian's old desk right now and listening, going, oh my gosh, that's me. I could do that. I mean, maybe she's working too hard for me, but I could still do some of those things. And that's the whole purpose, is so we all see that it's not just, okay, I decided when I was 6 years old I want to be a doctor, and at 22 I'm going to medical school. There's a whole bunch of years in between. Like, what did you do to get there? And that's what we're discussing. And she's so kind to tell us. And I really hope you're listening, because she's working it. I mean, when you're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, you're going to be successful, whether or not whatever gets in your way. It's going to happen.
Right. I think that just developing that, honestly, grit early on, is just that ability to look adversity in the eyes and say, like, okay, what's next is challenging. It doesn't come easy, but let me tell you, I think a large part of it is social media, where a lot of people get to that point where you want to be there too, but it seems like they blinked and it just all fell into their hands. And it's really easy to, cast that almost
dispersion.
Yeah, exactly. Just really create something that looks made overnight. And it's almost hard not to desire to have the same ease, right? But it's
because everybody wants it. Everyone wants the gold ring. They just don't want to work for it.
Right.
Like I say in class, LeBron James didn't just walk out on a basketball court and poof, he's LeBron James. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. Pick any athlete, pick any Jeff Bezos, pick any successful person. Warren Buffett, I mean, he talks about his failures all the time. And, at one point he was the richest man in the world, and he wasn't given this. He's not the Sultan of Brunei. The guy started with nothing. He still lives in the same house that he raised his children in. The guy's a multi-billionaire, and he spent a lot of time working on that. So success is basically hard work. How much are you willing to do to get the success that you want? Now, like you said, with social media, with these young cats, they have a lot of extra time. They can work on it. This new medium, if you find your right niche, you can hit the right people and you can do the right thing. Like this podcast, I never realized how successful this thing would be. I love to look at my analytics, and every once in a while, a new country that I have no idea started listening to me. Just today, I was looking, Argentina popped up. I'm like, I don't know anybody in Argentina, but somebody in Argentina is listening. And it put a smile on my face, because I was like, wow, this is amazing. The other a couple of months ago, somebody popped up from Australia. I know somebody in New Zealand, but I don't know anybody who lives in Australia. And it's just a nice feeling that my hard work is paying off, that people are listening. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm trying to help people. I'm altruistic. I'm just giving it away for free. Maybe some people would call me stupid, but I'm helping people, and that's what I like to do. I have the ability. I have these wonderful young adults who want to come on, like Darian, and they want to tell their story. And I really hope you're listening and learning something from it. So speaking of learning, what did you learn about Don Estridge as a school after you left the hallowed halls? What did high school show you that you didn't know that the Don taught you? Was there anything there that you're like, oh man, I learned that, I didn't realize?
So I would say that, and maybe it's just because I did come in 8th grade, is that you come to realize that not every school is like Don Estridge. Not every school has that immense mix of people from all different backgrounds. And whether you take that to your advantage or not, I mean, the people you're able to meet and the guidance that they give you is second to none. And I think one of the things I can look back at is that for some reason I got put into piano class and stagecraft. And
wow.
I was like, what is this? Why? I don't want to do any of this.
I didn't choose this. It chose me.
But let me tell you, those were great classes. And I didn't realize that a lot of people in middle school don't get those options. And you don't get those choices.
Yeah, those opportunities don't happen for everybody.
Right. I think that the immense care that just everyone has at the Don for the students, I think, is really nowhere else. And I can I can say that because I do have something to compare to. Of course, I only spent 1 year there, but it really wasn't until the very end that I realized that. And to answer the second question, really, what I learned in high school that I didn't learn from the Dawn is maybe just more about myself and the fact that people will accept you for who you want to be. I think, like we were discussing earlier, I do. You can't judge a book by a cover. I'm the biggest example of that, and I have a really goofy, outspoken personality that unfortunately I didn't get to show a lot of people, and I think that was a large part of me, and it still is. And that was something that I maybe discovered after middle school years, that I was just scraping the surface in 8th grade. And
Well, yeah, in 8th grade, we're just getting to know who we are. We're trying to figure out our friend group, but we're trying to figure out who we want to be. Is this it? Like I tell the kids all the time, you guys are lucky. When you go to high school, it's going to be like 90% people you have no idea who they are. I didn't get to reinvent myself until I went to college because, like I said, I went to high school with basically all the same people I went to school with my whole life. So if you decide you want to change, people are like, for instance, Darian said she's blonde. All of a sudden, she decides in 9th grade she wants to go make her hair black. People would be like, whoa, what happened here? But if she went to a school where she didn't know anybody and nobody would be the wiser, no one would know. And the reason I brought that up is because it just reminded me a couple of years ago, I had a girl who did that. She came to the Don similarly like you, and all of a sudden she had black hair. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, whatever. And then all of a sudden, as the year went on, the black started to fade away and the blonde started coming out. And I'm like, you're blonde? And she's like, well, I didn't want anybody to judge me. I didn't want this. I didn't want that. And I was like, wow, you went to the point where you were going to dye your hairs to be so different. And it just blew my mind to the extent that some people will do to just try to either A, fit in, or B, not be noticed.
Right. I think that was something that did take me a while to realize. But when I realized it kind of felt like, sounds kind of cliche, but the world was my oyster. It was like I can pretty much be comfortable in any setting. And let me tell you, middle school was not the years where I felt comfortable in any setting. I constantly
no one does, Darian. You're not alone. It happens to everyone.
Exactly. So, and I'm sure people can relate to that. So
of course. I love to tell a story that when I was in, it was called junior high at the time because it was actually 7, 8, 9. And actually, I only went for 7 and 8 because 9th grade was bumped back up to the high school. I went to elementary school 2 through 6. So then 6 got moved and became middle school. And then high school was 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, somebody once called me Sweater Man in middle school, and it drove me nuts. And then I never wore a sweater again. It could have been minus 30 outside. I'm like, I'm not wearing a sweater because somebody called me Sweater Man, and I hated it. So you never know. You don't know what's going to be that catalyst to move you in the direction that you want. That's amazing. It just really is. So as I end all of these podcasts, I ask the same question because I want to know who remembers. I'm not trying to gotcha or put you on the spot, but do you remember who Don Estridge was as a person and what he was known for?
I do. I mean, I did grow up in Boca, actually, and I always knew him as the founder of IBM. Is he really the sole founder? I'm not sure, but I know he has a large part of it.
He's actually not the founder of IBM, but he is the father of the PC. He gets credit for inventing the personal computer that IBM made. And it was made in that building that you and I both, you went to and I go to almost every day. So it was actually made there because Don Estridge was a secret IBM facility that was run by IBM. And then when they didn't need it anymore, they sold the building to Palm Beach County, and Palm Beach County turned it into a school. And it's named after him because, unfortunately, I believe in 1984, him and his wife, unfortunately, died in a plane crash. And when the school was built, they found out about this guy, and they're like, we want to name it after him. And then his family were so kind and gracious, they donated his own personal computer. Not the first one he invented, but the one that he actually used. And I don't know if you remember, but it still sits in the front office today. You can actually go there and see it.
I do remember that. I do remember. Actually, I do weirdly remember the first day of school. I have came in and I didn't even have a schedule, and I sat in that front office for, oh my gosh, as long as I could remember. It felt like a whole day.
Yeah.
Felt like
here you are,
24 hours.
Here you are at a brand new school. You don't know anybody, and you're stuck in the front office until they can figure out what to do with you because you just literally got in.
Yeah. They had comfy chairs, though. I was okay.
Yeah, definitely. They've always had comfy chairs in the office.
Yeah.
I have my first day ever remembering it as well. When I went on my interview, I had to sit in that front office just like you did. And then I went on my interview. I got interviewed by like 14 people. And then I came out and I just saw a mass of humanity sitting there. And I was like, wow, this is a hopping kind of place. I like it. I want to work here. And luckily I got the job. And 20 years later, I'm still there. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the podcast and telling your tribes, your tribulations. Mostly for you, it's successes, but without, not saying your negatives and your downfalls, because that's what life is all about. And we learn from all these things. And I really appreciate you coming on, telling your stories to these kids who are listening. And hopefully, not hopefully, I know it's going to make a difference with someone out there. There are multiple people out there who are going to listen and go, if she can do it, she broke out of the mold, I can do the same thing. So on behalf of myself and the How I Got Here podcast, Darian, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me and discussing how I got here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really was excited to be, I feel like I have a large story to tell, and I'm really hoping that it is relatable to at least just one person. And if there's anything I can conclude with is that you have that ability to create your own version of yourself, and it's not the instruction guide that you need to get to a certain career, but it's the journey. And I think that it's not really easy to come to that realization, but once you do it is a sigh of relief that all you've done is up to that point, and it's created you for you and no one else really. So
that's awesome. I just can't wait to see what Dr. Peters is doing next. That's what I want to see.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time for another episode of How I Got Here and more stories of former students and their journey.